Welcome to Food for Thought. My name is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, and I am your host. You can learn more about who I am and what I do by visiting my website, joyfulvegan.com. And if you are interested in traveling with me in any of our upcoming all-inclusive vegan trips, you can join me in Northern Italy and in Rwanda for unforgettable trips of a lifetime in 2024. Details are at joyfulvegan.com. Today's episode is It Would Be So Much Easier to Not Care. This episode of Food for Thought is brought to you by the listeners of this podcast, and that means you. You can keep this podcast going and you can keep it ad-free by becoming a patron. You can just go to joyfulvegan.com/donate, or you can see the donate button there, or go to patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, or click on the links in the show notes and choose the level that's right for you. And if you're a listener on Apple Podcasts, you can now become a subscriber there and enjoy bonus material, bonus episodes, and early access to episodes. Thank you in advance for keeping Food for Thought going. We're moving on to our 18th year of this podcast, and I appreciate your support. Hi, everyone. I just returned home from our Joyful Vegan trip to Alsace, where we had an incredibly magical time. This is a trip that is revolved around the Christmas markets. Christmas markets are unique to Germany. Well, they originated in Germany. They're unique to that region. Of course, you see Christmas markets now all around the world, but Alsace being a unique part of France, because it was back and forth between France and Germany for so many years, it has a real stamp of German culture, German food, and German traditions like Christmas markets. And so we revolve this trip around the Christmas markets and all of the incredibly charming towns in Alsace. And we also go into Germany and we go into Switzerland as well. So we enjoyed lots of Christmas markets, saw lots of Christmas trees, had lots of Glühwein, which is mulled wine, or vin chaud if you're in France. We enjoyed lots of sparkly lights every second of every day. We had a wonderful time. And somehow on this trip, I think it's been top of mind for me for a while, but it was something I thought about on this trip a lot. I was keenly aware of how much easier it would be to not care, right? Being asleep certainly has its advantages. Not that I would have it any other way, but it's something I'm aware of a lot. And even more so when we were in Europe. We were in Germany and France and Switzerland in the wintertime, meaning the food, the outerwear, the scarves, the gloves, the hats, everything has animal products, not atypical at all for this part of the world and for this part of the world during wintertime. And one of the things, of course, we pride ourselves on in running these trips is to create the most incredible experience for vegans and for the people who love them, because not everybody who comes on the trip is vegan, but they're there because they know that the trips are vegan and they're enjoying everything we create. But the idea is to make sure that vegans experience a trip that any non-vegan would experience, wherever we go, whatever the places are, whatever the experience is. We want vegans to feel the abundance, and we don't want vegans. My whole brand is about the fact that living vegan is about abundance. It's not about deprivation. And we work so hard to arrange for the most incredible food and accommodations and service and experiences and adventures. That's the point. That's why we do this. We basically normalize what it means to live and eat and travel compassionately and healthfully, because there's no reason as vegans, people who want to live compassionately and healthfully should not experience the same thing that we did before we were vegan. And still, I am constantly struck by how much easier it would be to not give a crap, right? Like, it would be so much easier. So for instance, we were in Alsace, we were at Christmas markets. There's food stalls. There are stalls selling everything you can imagine: Christmas ornaments, traditional tchotchkes, local items, lots of food. And I wanted a pretzel. I love pretzels. I love pretzels. And I went from town to town. I mean, I didn't do this as a quest, but when we were in a town, I thought, well, I'd like a pretzel. So we would see a pretzel stall and I would stop, or a place selling pretzels, and I would stop and say, is this pretzel? I would do this in my very broken French, made without cow's milk. And pretty much all of them were made with cow's milk. all of them. And we were in Alsace, nearly impossible to find a pretzel without cow's milk. And I'm not even talking about egg wash being brushed on the top of the pretzel because that's sometimes done, or butter, that kind of thing. It's that they use cow's milk in the dough, which is not that's not a pretzel. Right, and I get that recipes change and variations are made depending on where you are. But when I think of pretzels, I think, yep, that's just suitable for vegans, no animal products. And in Germany, you can find those authentic pretzels. They are from Germany after all. And fun fact, most food historians, when they look at the origin of pretzels in Germany, again, their origin is absolutely 100% from Germany. But also, interestingly, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. Food historians would also tie German pretzels to Christianity because in the Christian church, pretzels have simple ingredients without animal products, and so it made them suitable to be eaten during Lent. So you remember in the episode I talked about Lent, I talked about the fact that Carnival, for instance, literally refers to the fact that people are saying goodbye to meat, literally saying goodbye to carnival. That's where the word comes from. Because for 40 days prior to Easter, Christians were expected to not consume animal products. Now, it is not the case anymore, but historically that was the case. And also, if you listen to the episode on Advent, same thing. So Christians were called upon to not consume animal products, and pretzels associated with Easter, and it was for a very long time. In fact, there was a tradition of hiding pretzels the way people hide chickens' eggs today for Easter, because they were so traditionally associated with Lent and with Easter, because pretzels are basically made of a very simple ingredient, which is dough and water and yeast. I mean, that's it. And so because they were free of animal products, they were suitable for that time period. And so it's really frustrating when animal products are unnecessarily added to things like pretzels. And so once we crossed the border into Germany, we had no problem finding stall after stall at Christmas markets selling proper pretzels with no animal products. And it was such a pain in the butt. It was just one of those things where, I mean, for me, it became a quest. I kind of enjoyed it because I would just be like, okay, I don't even want a pretzel right now, but I'm going to go ask that person because I want to know. And I want them to know that I'm asking. But they very proudly, in every case, no, I shouldn't say that. That's not true. Some people were just adamant, nope, there's milk, just no. But some people apologized and said, no, there's milk, sorry. I think, they're using the same kind of probably the same dough from the same vendor, to be honest. And when you get into Germany, that wasn't the case, right? And so I just use this as an example of, yeah, it would be so much easier to just walk up to a stall. This is what I did before I was vegan. I'd like a pretzel, please. Don't ask any questions, doesn't matter. Just take the pretzel, eat it, enjoy it. That's it, right? But because I am mindful of what goes into the animal products and what the animals endure for those animal products that we put in our pretzels, I'm happy to ask, right? But I'm aware that it's so much easier if I just didn't have to ask, right? And that goes for pretty much all of the food at the Christmas markets. And I'm going to kind of call out Alsace here. It's mostly Alsace because once you get to Germany and Switzerland, very vegan friendly. Yes, Switzerland, wait for it. An episode is coming and I can't wait to share everything with you. But Germany and Switzerland, much easier. And it's not like I was looking at all the non-vegan food and like sausages and raclette, which is broiled cheese on bread, and craving them. It wasn't that. It wasn't like, oh God, I really want these things and it would just be so much easier if I could have them. It wasn't that. Quite the contrary. The smell of raclette I find pretty offensive to my little vegan nose. I think it smells really gross. But yeah, like seeing the beautiful gingerbread cookies, right, in all of these markets. A lot of the gingerbread, to be honest, isn't meant for consumption. They're meant for decoration. But still, I'm not going to buy something that has animal products in it. And I know what German gingerbread tastes like because once you've had, it's called Lebkuchen, would be the gingerbread, the German gingerbread. Once you've had the vegan Lebkuchen, it's just so good. And so, yeah, okay, you see the Lebkuchen, you want some, all right, not a big deal, fine, whatever. right? Or the donuts. So you look at a donut with the powdered sugar. I'm like, oh, that looks really good. That should be vegan. I don't say, oh, I really want it, and then I have to contemplate, should I have it? That's not what it is. But you're aware that like, okay, I'm not gonna have a donut, which, fine. I don't have a donut. Or pastries like snowballs, or there's marzipan or stollen, like things that everyone else is eating without a thought. You're just aware, like, how nice it would be to just order that. How nice it would be, really, if it were all vegan. Now, to be clear, there are lots of things that are also naturally suitable for vegans. The roasted chestnuts everywhere, amazing. I love roasted chestnuts. Was always happy. And by the way, when we're doing our trips, there is no need for food in between our meals anyway, because we have lots of food and we are constantly feeding our travelers. And believe me, I go on a nice little fast cleanse when I come home from any of our trips. So it's not like we're hungry at all. And even when we're alone, I don't want to eat all of the things all of the time. And when you're at a Christmas market, you smell those roasted chestnuts. Love the roasted chestnuts. There's spiced almonds, there's sugared almonds, there's pretzels if you're in Germany. There are many food stalls in Germany and Switzerland that have vegan items on their menus. So I'm exaggerating a little bit to make the point that, you know, when you want the thing you want, most people are just going to go get it because it's just easier to just do that versus seeking out what you want to make sure that that thing reflects your values, right? But same thing with clothing, right? When I first arrived in Paris, I wanted a hat. I forget what it's called, whatever. It's a cute little cap I wanted. I didn't want a beret. I didn't want I mean, I thought I'd get a beret for a second, but I just knew that every store I went to, and we went to a couple department stores, famous department stores in Paris. We went to a couple stores and everything had wool, everything had cashmere, everything. And they're, proudly advertised as having alpaca or merino and some really pretty ones. And they were pretty. Like there were some hats. There was a hat I tried on. I loved it. I wanted it. But again, it wasn't even a moment. I wasn't torn. It wasn't like, oh, just gonna get the hat. I didn't want it because it had animal products. It's more that, oh, why can't you just make this without animal products, right? But still, I had to put that hat down, fine, and think, okay, I'm not gonna have the hat. Or I'll just keep looking like I did with the pretzels. In the end, my friend Jackie, who joined us in Alsace, very sweetly knew that I wanted this hat. And I asked her kind of what this style was. And I asked on social media, what is this called? Anyway, she showed up the next day with that hat for me she had found. Of course, it didn't have animal products. So super lovely. In the end, got what I wanted. But if I didn't, I would have been fine with it. But I'm just aware how nice it would be to just go to a store and just get what you want and not have to think about it and not ask. But it's because I care that I ask. And it's because I care that I don't get what I at that moment think, oh, it'd be nice to have, right? Now I know this is exactly why people don't want to know about how cow's milk is produced or how sheep and goats suffer for wool and cashmere or how hens suffer so humans can consume their eggs. I get it. This is why I've dedicated my life to guiding people on this journey through this process, whether they are becoming vegan or staying vegan. I get it. This is why I do what I do, right? This is why I guide people from being asleep to being awake, because that's literally what it is. We kind of avoid becoming awake because we're aware that it's going to change things for us. And I get it. And as much as my message is in the work that I do is, listen, there is abundance. There is everything we want out there. We don't have to be deprived. We don't have to sacrifice, right? That's not what this lifestyle is about. And at the same time, convenience is convenient and habits are comforting. In addition to being wary of change, this is what I often say, that I don't think people are afraid to be vegan. I don't think that's why people say, I don't want to be vegan. I think it's because they don't want change because we're such creatures of habit. And I think it's because they're wary of the unknown. They don't know what it's going to look like, how it's going to impact their lives and their relationships if they do make a change like this. But I do think in addition to that, convenience and habits are the main reasons people make the choices they do. I lived it. I get it. And the companies that sell to us exploit those parts of our human minds, right? Our desire to have everything easy and our desire to have everything familiar. right? And that's not to say there's anything wrong with wanting a life of ease where we don't have to struggle to sustain ourselves and our families. I don't want to struggle, and I don't want anyone else to struggle. But even though it'd be so much easier to not care, I can't help myself. I just feel compelled to do the right thing because I know the suffering that I am causing if I buy a thing that has a product in it that was procured through suffering, right? And that feels really good. So when it's weighed, and again, this weighing doesn't happen in a way that is conscious and it's definitely not something I weigh every time. It's just my natural response to, do the thing that is going to create as little harm as possible, right? And that feels really, really good. Feels better than wearing a wool beret or eating a pretzel, like, period. But I guess I'm also saying that the problem is so many people get hung up on the goal of perfection, right? That, oh gosh, I could never, what if I ate that pretzel with milk in it? I don't want to be vegan because what if I just wanted that pretzel and I didn't want to ask about, if there's milk powder in it and big deal, right? Right. But because people get hung up on that perfection and feel that since they can't live up to that perfection, by the way, no one can, then they do nothing at all. The problem is that when we let perfection be the enemy of the good, we relinquish our own responsibility. We expect someone else to take care of the mess that frankly we're creating. And we become cynical and disheartened when we see that nothing changes. And it's true that there are many things out of our control and that the weight of what's harmful in this world should not fall only on individuals. But the very least I can do is do my best to not make it worse in my name, right? I mean, the companies who create these products or the packaging that's going to sit in landfills or in the ocean or the animal products that obviously cause harm to the animals who would rather not endure the torment that is involved in meat, dairy, and eggs, or wool, or name it, right? The companies who don't want to be accountable want individuals like me and you to feel powerless and ineffectual. And by giving into that narrative, I'm amplifying it. If I just said, yeah, 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 I can't, like, I can't do everything. I'm not going to be able to change all this. It's too big. Then I'm just amplifying that and enabling them, right? Because these companies rely on our aversion to inconvenience. That's partly the reason we're so averse to it. They've made us rely on them by providing things whenever we want them, right? We have no idea how good we have it. I mean, it's a privilege to be able to get a pretzel anytime I want it. Like, it just is, right? I mean, that's part of what I think about when I am aware that I'm willing to say no to a pretzel that has milk in it. That I appreciate, I don't know, like delayed gratification. Like that's one of my values as well, is being mindful that I have access to so many things and being grateful for it and not taking that for granted. So there is something really, I don't know, satisfying in kind of saying no and waiting to have what I really do want, right? So there's something going on there as well. But I get it because, having whatever we want whenever we want them, it's something that is part of our culture and it's part of it's part of our habits. And when I choose not to have these things, I'm not thinking of all this. It happens it's just very instinctive. It's very instinctual. It's very much a default is to just not have something that's not reflecting my values. I immediately, it's not even an effort to think about the effects of my behavior. Like I immediately just think of the victims of my purchases, right? Because it's so easy to be willfully blind. That's why we avoid it. It's painful to bear witness. That's why we avoid it, right? But the message I hope to convey, and I hope I've been conveying for the last several decades, is that we don't have to bear witness again and again and again and again to hold in our minds the effects of the decisions we make. That's the difference between looking and staring. We don't, that's the power of, wakefulness and consciousness. It's the power of our memory and imagination. I don't have to look at the suffering of animals every time I have to make a decision of what I'm gonna eat or buy, right? I read Slaughterhouse 23 years ago, and I've never had to read it again to call to mind the images of the animals being tormented for me to have a BLT, right? I I keep myself aware and I keep myself educated, and I do talk about this in The Joyful Vegan, and you've heard me say before, I do think we have to bear witness every so often so we don't forget, but I don't have to do it every time I sit down to have breakfast or lunch or dinner, or every time I want, I'm at a market, like, I don't have to say, "Oh, hold on, let me go I gotta go read this." No, I mean, it's just part of my being now, right? And that is the orientation to the world that's why I emphasize compassion as a framework for living. And like that's the my orientation to the world is to do the right thing and to not create harm. As much as I might want a pretzel at that moment and would love the ease of having it without having to ask if it's made with cow's milk, I just have to think for 1 second about the impact of my decision. And that's enough to compel me to say no, to ask the next pretzel vendor, to not have the pretzel. And I don't know. I like the challenge. Maybe you can't identify with that, but I like that. It feels good. It actually feels good to say no to that. And it's not about perfection. I am not perfect, right? Nobody is perfect, but I'm willing to do what I can, because I have the opportunity to make conscious choices. That's a beautiful thing. It really is. It is so much more fulfilling to make a conscious choice than it is to make an unconscious choice, right? It's so much more fulfilling to make a decision based on being awake than making a decision out of just desire or want or pleasure. And I'm willing to do that, right? I mean, it's the reason why, language is so important and the way we talk about this is so important. I know most of you listening already know this and would agree with this, but it's something we can reframe for people when they say something like, "Can you eat this?" Because of course I can do anything I want. I can eat that. I can eat that pretzel. I don't want it. And that's the difference. I don't want it, but I don't want it not because it falls into the category of not vegan. I don't want it because I don't want to contribute to cruelty. I don't want it because it's not reflecting my values, right? And so that's what I mean when I say being vegan is about saying yes more often than it is about saying no. Because if you just flip that around, I'm saying no to cruelty, and I'm also saying yes to my values of compassion, of kindness, of wellness, whatever it is, whatever your values are, by being willing to look, by being willing to be awake, to bear witness. eh, I'm saying yes to my values of accountability and responsibility. And that feels really good. It's not a sacrifice to do so. It's an honor. It's a privilege. And as much as being vegan is perceived as being restrictive, and of course, any non-vegan who would hear that I go from stall to stall to find the vegan pretzel might sound completely unappealing to them, but the truth is it brings me joy. And as much as, yes, it would be so much easier to not care, it's so much more fulfilling to care. And I would take fulfillment and satisfaction and the reflection of my values over convenience any day. Now, I say this completely aware that when everyone else is getting that pretzel. I'm using this pretzel as an example. You get this whole idea. The pretzel is a metaphor for all non-vegan foods. But the people who say yes to the pretzel, the people who get the raclette, the people who get the sausage, please hear me. Those people are not weighing cruelty and compassion. They're just not even thinking about it. And that's where I was, and that's why, we need to raise awareness. And that's why I just, my message is, believe me, there is so much more satisfaction in being awake than in being asleep. There is so much more joy in making conscious decisions, even though someone hearing the story might say, "No, that sounds like such a pain." Well, you don't know the difference because you're just going and not even thinking about it. And I'm telling you that there is so much more satisfaction in actually knowing. I've often said that, it can be painful to be awake, but only an open heart can break. I would so much rather have my eyes and my heart open than make decisions with my eyes closed. There's so much power in that, and there's so much joy and there's so much satisfaction. So to me, for someone who goes up and orders that sausage, again, they're not saying I'm choosing cruelty consciously. I don't want to choose compassion. I'm choosing cruelty. But when they have previously said, yeah, I don't care. I don't want to know. Don't tell me. That's restrictive. That's limiting. And being vegan is being open and willing to look and willing to know. That's expansive. And that's what I mean when I say there is so much more satisfaction in being awake and aware because there's not a struggle. It's not a struggle when I don't have the pretzel. It's annoying. It would be so much easier to just have the pretzel, but walking away not getting the pretzel feels better than, especially with my eyes open, getting that pretzel and knowing what is involved. So that's why I'm willing to not get the damn pretzel. That's why I'm willing to do things like, I think about this a lot. I hand water my gardens because we gray watered our showers, you know. It'd be a lot easier to turn on the irrigation. And I've done it. Sometimes I turn on the irrigation. There's irrigation downstairs. Sometimes I have to use irrigation, but we have rain tanks and we have gray water. And I'm willing to stand there and don't tell me that there's a way to do the irrigation with the gray water. It's very difficult to do because you need the pump, you need the pressure. And so we have the pumps. And so I hand water. Now I love hand watering my garden. It's a pain in the butt sometimes, but I do it because it's the right thing to do. Blueberries, you know, I love frozen blueberries and I can't get enough frozen blueberries if I grew blueberries, and I'm still trying to grow my damn blueberries, and I still haven't had any blueberries. Buying blueberries from the farmer's market that are just in the little pint baskets, I could do that. I could never get enough, and I'd be completely broke because they're so expensive. So I figured out a way to get blueberries in bulk from Azure, which is a company that it's a distribution company, and they sell products in wholesale to stores and restaurants, right? They have figured out a way to be able to sell directly to individuals like me and you. And I know some of you are already aware of Azure, but I am willing to go once a month to meet a truck on the side of the road to get my 30 pounds of blueberries that aren't in plastic packaging. Yeah, there's a big bag of one big bag of blueberries, but it's not the soft plastic that's not going to be able to break down in a landfill. I'm willing to do that because it's the right thing to do and it feels good. I compost every scrap of food. I tear plastic windows off of envelopes and then compost the paper. I, go to the farmer's market for produce, but then I also go to a bulk store for my bulk items. It'd be a lot easier to just go to a store and pick up everything I want, but I do it because it's the right thing to do. And yeah, I'm going to one store in the car. We drive an electric vehicle, right? Which is technically an inconvenience because when we're on road trips, we have to stop for a half hour to charge. I love it. I do. It feels really good. But yeah, it's a lot more convenient to stop and just put some gasoline in your car, right? I, I wear contact lenses. David wears contact lenses. TerraCycle is a company that takes the blister packs where my contact lenses were, and you can send them back to TerraCycle because it's a hard to recycle item. Most municipal recycling centers won't recycle those blister packs. I can't, in good conscience, put those blister packs in the garbage. So I have a separate little container that David and I both put our blister packs in. And then when it's filled, I put it in a box that's in our closet. And when that box is filled, I go to an eye doctor who volunteers to have a box that TerraCycle takes when they mail it to them. It's a pain, but I'm willing to do it and I'm happy to do it because it's the right thing to do and it feels good to do it. I make most of my food from scratch. I bring canvas bags to the grocery store. If I don't have a canvas bag, I'll just carry everything in my arm. More convenient to just put things in a plastic bag or just grab a bag because I don't have a bag. I get it, right? I get it, but it feels good. I hang clothes. I've been doing that, which is feeling really good. David is so sweet because he will hang the clothes now on our racks. I use the dryer sometimes, not 100% perfect, but I hang clothes on the dryer. They're out there in the sun drying right now. Feels really good. A lot easier to throw things in the dryer, right? Okay, you're gonna think I'm a nutty nut bar, but I brought some packaging home with me from our trip that I knew I'd be able to more properly dispose of here in California than if I just threw it. And I could have just thrown it in the garbage when we were in France. I brought garbage home with me. I mean, it wasn't dirty, smelly garbage, but it was like some packaging because we were at one of the Christmas stalls and there was a vegan candy stand. And like they really promoted the vegan aspect. They were kind of like these sour gel kind of things. They were delicious. And I thought, I really want to support them. And they come in a thick plastic bag, with a little thing. And I thought, I'm just going to get these. And I took that home with me because I'm now using a company, and I highly recommend checking Ridwell out if they might be serving a city you're in. They're serving about 6, 7 cities right now. And Ridwell is like TerraCycle in that they take hard to recycle items, but they pick them up at your door. Now, I don't know how long they're going to be able to do this for because, the more you need people power to do these kinds of things, the harder it is to scale. But we'll see. Right now, we're using them and they're amazing. So I can put into they give these great little canvas bags and then you put it in the bin. And every week they come and pick it up. So I can put in like shipping envelopes and the thicker plastic, like the candy came in, I can put them in those bags and they come and pick them up. Now, that doesn't mean I'm buying more of this stuff because I'm using Ridwell, right? That's not that would kind of defeat the purpose. But when I do have a situation where, we order something online and it does come in a plastic mailer, or I thought I wanted to support the vegan candy stall and I knew I'd be able to bring that packaging home to put in the Ridwell box, I'm willing to do that, even though it'd be so much easier to just do the wrong thing. Like it would just be so much easier. Like I get this. And I'm not saying all this to boast. I'm saying this because I want to indicate all of the opportunities we have to do the right thing. So we can easily get overwhelmed by all of the problems in the world. Oh, there's so much plastic. Oh, there's so much plastic packaging. Oh, oil companies creating greenhouse gases. Oh, there's so much food waste. But in every one of those situations, I see them as opportunities to reduce my use of plastic and packaging, to walk when I can, to opt for an electric vehicle when I can, to compost food, to creatively cook with food scraps rather than throw food in the garbage, to pay for a service like Ridwell or TerraCycle, or go to the eye doctor with all of my blister packs. Like I see them as opportunities. I see them as opportunities rather than as hardships, right? I see them as so many opportunities to do the right thing. There's so much we can do, even though I'm acknowledging, yeah, like it would be so much easier to like just not do the right thing. Now, I want to acknowledge before I close that some of us are more willing to do this than others or able to. And I realize that, not everyone's going to have access to Ridwell. Not everyone can afford it. Not everyone can compost. Not everyone has a service that recycles. Like, I get all of that. I want to acknowledge that. I was talking to my sister. I was there in Florida helping her with my father and my sister. We're very different. We have had very different we had different priorities in our lives. And we're Lori's not vegan, she's not vegetarian. I'm sure she eats vegetables, but she's just not. She raised her kids, they're meat eaters, whatever, all the things, right? All the things. And we were talking at one point because when I was there, I was staying with her. She doesn't recycle. Now, I didn't even ask her, like, because I think I asked a little bit, but I couldn't get to the bottom of it, and it's fine. But I was like, wait, like, do you have a recycling bin that you just don't use? Or does your city not provide recycling? Like, I don't know. But, I was saying to her, I was like, it's so painful for me to put food and glass bottles and like whatever I had, like, cause I was still not buying, a lot of products, but like I'm on the road, like I can't do the same thing I would normally do at home. And so I said, I cannot tell you how painful it is for me to put like food in the garbage. and, and she said, I can't even think about it. I can't even think about it. Like, I can't even think about recycling. I can't do it. And she goes, I'm doing as much as I can. She said, I'm washing the plastic bags. Look at that. I have a little plastic bag tree where she, washes back. And I'm being gentle here because my sister has literally adopted 3 children. She has raised 2 biological children. So she has 5 children now. one of whom was adopted from Russia and has had attachment disorder his whole life because he was never held or coddled or taken care of properly prior to Lori adopting him when he was 12 months old. She's just recently adopted two girls from Colombia who were in foster homes because they came from a really, really difficult situation. They were taken out of their home and separated, and now they're together in my sister's home. So, her perspective is there's only so much I can do, and so I get that. Like, I'm not denying that, I have chosen this lifestyle. I don't have children, et cetera, et cetera. We all make our choices, right? But I just want to just put out there, are we all able to do a little more than we're doing now, right? And that's why I love the whole concept of don't do nothing because you can't do everything. If we're really honest with ourselves, can we do a little bit more, right? Don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something, anything, right? And that's what it comes down to. Are we willing to do a little more? Are we able to do a little bit more? I'm willing to live with a little inconvenience because when I picture plastic bags in a turtle's throat, that pains me. When just for sour candy, that's why I was willing to come home with the the bags. um, when I think of what dairy cows endure, so that I could have a pretzel right then and there, that pains me. Right. So I'm willing to not have the pretzel. When I think of sheep being tormented in an arduous journey to the Middle East to be slaughtered for their meat because their productivity is run out for their wool, it pains me. And so I'm willing to not get that red beret, right? So that's all is, where can we say, yeah, I'm willing to not have that because of a higher cause, right? Does that mean I sometimes don't get what I want? Yes. Does that mean I sometimes delay gratification? Yes. Does that mean I have to compromise sometimes and maybe use a different brand than I used to? Yes. Right? Do I strive for perfection? No. But my North Star is just doing the right thing when I can, just being aware, taking responsibility. My North Star is always compassion. And even if I fall short, the next time I do better. And I give myself a break. I really do. I give myself a break, but I don't do nothing because I think I have to do everything. I just do something and I keep going and I keep going. I'm willing to not have a pretzel until I find the one without cow's milk. I'm willing to delay my gratification. I'm willing to live with a little inconvenience because when I put my head down on the pillow at night, I can genuinely say I did the best I could and I chose compassion over convenience as I was able to. And as I've said before, I don't think people can make a difference. I know people do make a difference. Every dollar we spend, every product we buy, every action we take, everything we do has an impact on someone or something else. We don't get to decide whether we can make a difference or not. We get to decide only if the difference we inevitably make is negative or positive. That's it. Those are our only two choices. There are no neutral actions. Everyone says they want to make a difference, but we forget that in order to make a difference, we may have to do something different. And it feels really good to put my money where my mouth is because what is the point of having values? What's the use of having values if I don't manifest them in my behavior? What's the point of that? So, as we look forward to the next year, that is my invitation to you to just ask, is there a little bit more I can do? Am I willing to choose some inconvenience uh, in favor of compassion, in favor of manifesting your values in your behavior? And I also hope you join me in February for a workshop I'm hosting that is titled Compassion Fatigue, Avoiding Burnout and Cultivating Resilience. And a lot of what we talked about today ties into what we're going to be going over in this conference. Last year, we did effective communication as an online workshop, and I'm going to be hosting more workshops online. And this one I think is going to be incredibly helpful. So the whole point is to avoid burnout, to practice self-care, and still be an effective advocate, still be an effective voice for animals. The workshop is 3 hours long, and I can already tell you that folks who joined me last year for the online conference have connected in person. Even though we're online, you are connecting with each other. It's an incredible experience to watch, and I'm so grateful. We're going to focus on how a mindfulness and compassion practice can prevent compassion fatigue, prevent burnout, about and prevent empathic distress. You're going to learn practical strategies for cultivating a compassionate orientation to the world, one that looks through the lens of hope instead of despair, one that looks through the lens of optimism instead of cynicism or fatalism. We're going to talk about how to foster a commitment to animals and advocacy without feeling guilty that you're not doing enough or bearing witness enough. We're going to talk about everyday tools to deepen your compassion and your connection with friends and family and strangers and yourself. And we're going to talk about how to prioritize resilience and self-care and healthy empathy so you can increase your impact without compromising your mental health and so much more. So go over to joyfulvegan.com and register. There's an early bird special there right now. So I hope you join me. And in the meantime, have a wonderful holiday season. Have a happy new year. I look forward to more connection with you and more opportunities to live as compassionately and healthfully as possible together. For the animals, this is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Thanks for listening.